One question I get with goats is how do you keep them in? And the old joke is if your fence does not hold water, it will not hold a goat. And that's pretty much the truth. So I'm going to show you the kinds of fences that we have and use here that seem to work. But first, I guess the couple things why goats get out other than being hungry is they're an active animal. They are always on the move. So when they're grazing, they're always moving, unlike cows where the cow will kind of stop and eat. A goat just keeps on walking around. And then goats are just naturally curious, so they always are looking for something, looking for a hole, looking for something to do. I brought a bucket out here to set the camera on, and they're already exploring that. But we'll show you the fences that we use and what we seem to have good luck with, and explain a little bit more as we go along. So a lot of our fences are cattle panels. The problem with the cattle panel fence is they can get their heads through there and then they'll get their horns stuck. So what we did to remedy that is put a single strand of hot wire about shin width or shin height above the ground, so maybe 8 or 10 inches, and that will keep them from sticking their head through the fence. We only have it around this little pen because it tends to get grazed down fast. You usually have herd buck or something in here, and so not very many animals, but that's how we kind of solve the getting their head stuck issues. And of course all of our gates are cattle gates. This gate is a combination gate, so the bars are closer together at the bottom. It will keep them in unless they get really bored, but they also will crawl out those tops. This gate over here is a busted short gate, which this area is usually enclosed or shut off. It's kind of a loadout area that we have. But this one, she will jump over it if she gets bored enough. But that's kind of they do make special cattle panel or panels for goats and sheep that have a smaller opening instead of these. But I don't know what they cost, but if I was going to redo everything specifically for goats, I would invest in fences made for goats instead of having to put fences upon fences to keep them in. So basically we have a lot of cattle panel fencing, which does keep them in. The only issue is having them stick their heads through and get their heads stuck. So we remedied that by putting a hot wire around the outside of it to keep them away from it. So along here we have 4 strands of poly wire. This is an internal fence that we use. It keeps them in if they've respected it. This one the top wire is about waist high, and the next one is knee high. These will keep cattle in. Then another one about a little bit lower, and then this one is about 6 inches off the ground. These will keep goats that are trained to a hot wire and respect the hot wire, but I wouldn't use these out where there's no next fence for them to get through. This is in between buildings. It's actually to keep them out of that barn area, and so that if they do get through it, it's not the end of the world. But a lot of it is just teaching the goats respect for the wire. Goats that are in heat are extremely hard to keep in. The bucks will crawl out and find the does, or the does will find the bucks. But this is just an indoor or interior fence to keep them where they're supposed to be, I guess. Then along here where we have our continuous cattle fencing, bars are too far away to hold goats, and then the whole fence is about a foot off the ground. So we put 2 strands of poly wire along the bottom edge of it, and it does kind of keep the goats away from it and keeps them from crawling. And the biggest thing is a goat will find the smallest place to crawl under it, and the shock doesn't affect a goat as easy as a cow does. So by the time they get shocked, they're already through it. Along here is a high tensile fence. This is built as a cattle fence. It's 7 strands of high tensile fence wire. Number 1, number 3, and number 5 were hot for cattle, and then it had just neutral wires below it. This fence I added more wires to get that a hot wire at roughly waist high, knee high, shin high, and ankle high to myself, and that's kind of works out for the goats. I don't know the exact measurement. So all these bottom ones are all hot, but basically waist high is about enough fence for a goat. I mean, you don't really have to worry about building it super high. But this one, since the wire was already there, I just unhooked the wires and then put insulators on those wires instead of putting hot wire on the inside. Same thing with a woven wire fence. The fence will keep the goats in, but you have the problem getting their head stuck if you have horned goats. So we don't have any woven wire fence and or barbed wire, but I'm sure barbed wire, they'd end up crawling through that as well. And then the last type of fence we have is electric netting from Premier Fence. It's designed for sheep and goats. It's about waist high, but every one of these wires is electrified, so it's kind of mimics a woven type fence, but every wire on this is electrified. So this is the fence we use for grazing areas where there is no other fence around, and also for our like when we're grazing timber areas out for landlords or people. We'll use this. It comes in 160-foot rolls. It goes up fast. The only issue with this type of fence is snow and ice. We'll weight them down, and then plus getting the post in the ground. And then it is electrified almost all the way within 2 or 3 inches of the bottom. So this is like only our summer fence. It is end of December now. We've got one more area that we're going to try to hopefully get grazed out before snow flies. And the only problem with this fence is the grass will grow up into it. So it's when grass is growing really well, it's best that you're moving it every week to keep the grass from growing into it. We do mow a path the best we can when we set them up to keep all the grass away from them. And then all of our electric fences, we try to mow around the edges of them or take the weed whacker and keep them cleaned up. But the fencers that we run are pretty big and do kind of power through that stuff. But this is a lot of electrical wire because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 strands of wire. So where cows, where we keep them in with one wire, you essentially have 8 times that in a 160-foot stretch. The only problem with this type of fencing is it does blow over in high winds. We had another derecho-like storm Wednesday night, about a week after everybody that had the tornadoes down in Kentucky and that area. So if any of you guys are from that area, I hope you're all right. We've been through that summer of 2020 when a derecho-like tornado came through our farm and pretty much destroyed everything. But so it does blow down. The goats are out of this area. We're gonna pull these fences up for the winter. But in general, and it still goes back to, if your fence doesn't hold water, it's not going to hold a goat. So the best you can do is try. So like I said, we use a lot of cattle panel type fences or cattle gates, but we have a hot wire around the inside of them that kind of keeps them off of it and keeps them from getting their head stuck. And then the exterior fences or summer grazing fences that work best for us is the electric netting. And if I was going to fence in something permanently, I would go with the goat type panels. But if you're working with what you got, like we are, electricity solves a lot of problems. And the best thing is to get them trained, get them zapped with a good fence, and they will learn. But anyway, that's kind of the fences that work for us when they do. So thanks for watching. Questions, comments off on YouTube. So as always, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Try to keep make videos once a week or so, just updates around the farm and things we're doing and things that are working with us. So anyway, thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time.